Chaz Smith, welcome back to the Grit for August 3rd, 2023.
Feels so good to be here, David Lee Scales.
Middle of U.S. Open week.
How many times have you been so far?
0.
Ooh.
How many times have you been?
0, but I'm going today. I'm going to Travis Faray's Factory by the Sea.
Okay, good for you. I was hoping that you would.
Yep, I will. For those who missed last week's show, Travis was on to discuss it, and it is happening, I think, where? The Pacific
City.
Pacific City, which is across the street, if I recall, from the Pier Zone.
Yep.
And I can't remember the hours of the thing, but it's running for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I do believe.
I feel like, let's say 6 o'clock. It could be 5:30, it could be 6:30, but let's say 6 o'clock is kind of start time where the doors open up, and then they premiere the movies when the sun goes down at dark.
I'm pretty excited. I'm disappointed that you're not joining me, to be honest.
Well, I apologize. Like, what people don't know is it's a 2-hour drive for you. It's a 30-minute drive for me. So if anybody's going to be there, I should be there. But I'm turned off by the whole experience at the U.S. Open. I'm sure that Travis is putting together a phenomenal event, and that would be cool. But the parking, the crowds, all of it is just such a hassle for me at this point.
I'm going to re-embrace it. I'm going with a fresh, open mind, ready to experience the best that mid-level professional surfing has to offer.
As much as I don't look forward to things like that, I'm always thrilled once I do go participate in it and you see a bunch of people that you haven't seen for a long time, and the camaraderie is what I miss, I suppose.
It's true, and I'm going full well expecting all kinds of camaraderie.
Do you know what films they're showing tonight?
I have no idea, to be honest. I wonder if it's on the website.
The Noah Beschen film is playing. I don't know if it's tonight or one of the other nights. The not Carissa Moore, but Coco Ho film, I think, premiered last night. And then, of course, their own film, Inherent Bummers film, Surf Film Part 2.
Yeah, Surf Film Part 2, yeah. Well, whatever it is going to be a treat.
Sweet. Yeah, so Pacific City, for those who don't know, is that huge development that they built 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now. So I don't know where in Pacific City, because that's just the name of the development.
Zone, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know which unit they're in. Like, is it an empty space, or was it a former store, or what? That you got to figure out on your own. But anybody who's down there, go check it out. It's in the evenings, the Factory.
It's free beers, free foods, if I recall.
Yeah. Have you been watching any of the event?
I have. I keep getting drawn in and fascinated by the longboarding component of the event.
Actually going to the website to watch, or just watching clips on Insta?
No, actually, like, tuning in and saying, what's going on? And then I see that it's longboarding, and instead of turning away, possibly like seeing a car accident on the street, I turn it on. And then what really draws me in is Joe Turpel and Pete Mel and whatnot, the gang, commentating.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
Is it
so
good?
weird. No, I mean, it's like the waves that I've seen so far have been objectively terrible, which nobody expects anything much more from Huntington Beach. And
Yeah.
I think Huntington gets, for the U.S. Open in particular, but maybe all the time, gets a unfair shake, right? Huntington is a fun place to surf.
Totally.
And Huntington can put on a good show even, and has, oftentimes put on a good show for the U.S. Open, like where they'll get waves and they'll boost and they'll, put on a show, right?
Yeah.
This year's been awful. But the longboarding in particular is worse because it's mushy, and so they're kind of trying to walk the nose in the soup, basically. Like, the wave is already crumbled and it's not good. And then you got Joe Turpel and Pete Mel talking about it. Like, the absurdity of it all is like real peak for the longboarding component of the U.S. Open of surfing.
They've taken what they're forced to do for a living and turned it into a high art.
Yeah.
Like, their ability to act enthusiastic about incredibly mediocre surf and surfing is amazing.
I mean, it's truly,
8 hours a day.
I mean, it's truly, though, their brains must, honest to goodness, be mush. Because to have to watch that, which I've asked this for a long time about the wall of positive noise, et cetera, et cetera. Like, in watching it, why can't they just say, man, kudos to these guys. They're doing the best they can. You guys can see what they're doing. We don't need to call this action, right? This is not great stuff. So Pete, Mel, and I, we're just going to talk story. If we have to talk about something, we're just going to sit here and talk about our lives, or we're just going to let you listen to the birds or something. Anything but, like, really. And now he's running up to the nose. He's got his toes off the nose for a little cheater 5. That's really, oh man, we got some power flow style there. This is exactly what the criteria, just nonstop jibber jabber.
Yeah. There's not a lot to discuss.
Does it make you want a longboard?
No, not really. I mean, when I watch what they're doing on those waves, I realize that's the right equipment for the type of waves that they're riding. So there's that, like, oh, I wouldn't paddle out there on a short board. I guess, I would longboard if I had the longboard. But
have you seen the new CI longboard, the CI log?
I have, in fact. Wayne Rich's input on that. So yeah, the OG. But
did you see the clip?
Devin's clip?
Yeah.
That made me want to get a longboard, actually. Watching Devin surf that thing on a point break, I was like, holy cow, Devin, put away the mid-length. You are a logger. Like, that is incredible surfing.
It truly is. I mean, so what, like that clip, and I like, of course, anything Devin puts out, I watch, and I always think, that dang Devin Howard is a stylish surfer. He makes anything look good, right? And makes that CI log look so good. But then when you log on to the US Open of Surfing and watch them longboarding, again, I suppose the old chestnut right equipment for the right wave. And I suppose those waves, they should all be on soft tops, to be honest. It should be like a fun soft top battle.
True, but you're right. The difference there is that Devin's riding a point break, and that makes all the difference in the world. But as it relates to the US Open, I've just seen it on Instagram basically 2 or 3 times a day. WSL posts a clip, and it's like 8-point ride. And the first slide is like an image of the surfer smiling with the score. And then you swipe over and you get the video. Never once have I felt like it was anywhere near an 8-point ride. I see the score and I'm like, wow, somebody got a sick one. I'm excited to see it. And it's a very, very mediocre ride.
Not excited to see it.
Which I understand they're scoring that in the in the context of the heat on the scale that they're using, and so it's an 8 in that environment. But it's not entertaining to watch.
No, and I mean, again, goes right to the heart of some trouble, if not the trouble, with our World Surf League everything is cranked to 11 all the time. Everything has to be great. Everything has to be good. Not good. Everything has to be like the best, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if we're going to get into it, but did you watch Surf Girls or Hawaii Surf Girls or whatever it's called?
I've got a lot to say about it. Yes, we are going to get into it.
Okay, so we can pause there, I guess, on that.
Okay.
But the World Surf League, again, they just, like, what you see and what you hear are so different, and I don't know how they're not thinking, we should just, like, join these up. We should either say, hey, this is not the best, but this is part of pro surfing. There's a way to talk about it. There's a way to say these are difficult conditions. These are, and by difficult, we mean bad. Can't we just say the word? Yeah. Like, 2-foot Huntington, everyone looks at it and says, that's shitty. That is shitty surf.
Well, the most viewed moment from the event is, quote, provocative man fight breaks out at U.S. Open, cementing Huntington Beach's reputation as toughest town in the West, exclamation.
So true. This is the thing, this is truly the breakout moment of the entire U.S. Open of surfing.
And it always is. Every time, every 5 years at the U.S. Open, there is a physical altercation. And sometimes there's dozens, like when there's the riots, that make up for the years that there aren't. So I'd say we're averaging 5 fights a year at the U.S. Open, if you count those riots.
I like that everybody is taking, I think you truly set a precedent and a high bar back at the in Florida at the Surf Expo when you saw a fight about to break out and you took your job as cinematographer seriously.
Yes, I did.
You got your phone out, you captured the moment, you didn't get shy and pull back, you continued even in the face of a weird John Pizell, you kept shooting. Where now that's what happens, right? Everybody, we got that fight. It looked like from a couple angles.
Yeah, we did.
Nobody jumping in to sort it out. I am a cinematographer now.
So for listeners, I presume most people have seen it. I'm going to ask you to detail the backstory in a second, but essentially what happened was two pretty beefy dudes and muscly too.
Heavyweights.
Yeah, heavyweights with muscle, and then I'd say, a thick layer of fat over the muscles. So beefy dudes sitting very, very uncomfortably close to one another, but having this intense. It looked like there were two different groups of people, but it's so crowded that you then end up sitting within 6 inches of one another. But they're going forehead to forehead, arguing about something, is where the camera picks it up. And you're like, wow, this is getting intense. One dude headbutts the other dude. The guy just kind of takes it, doesn't even retaliate. They end up on their feet, and the head butter is throwing blows and severe blows at the other guy. He body shot loosens him up and then lands a couple of headshots, one of them on the chin, knocks the guy to the ground. Then he climbs on top of him and chokes him. And people aren't really intervening. I was expecting there to be a melee of people to break up the fight, and there's even an authority. I saw a lifeguard.
The lifeguard just standing on his walkie-talkie. He's not about to touch it.
Right. So it was a pretty serious fight. I mean, when you see when you pull up something on the internet and you see that people are going to get into a scuffle, rarely do you see a punch connect with somebody's chin. Sometimes there's arms thrown, but they're just flailing or something. This was like multiple shots landed. So what is the backstory as you know it?
Backstory, and I was happy to get the exclusive backstory quickly right away from somebody from boots on the ground who knew the whole story, apparently. And they were two roommates. The one roommate told the other roommate he was getting kicked out of the house. And so that's what the fight was. And the guy who landed multiple headbutts and landed multiple punches is the guy that actually went to the hospital at the end. So
I didn't know that.
He was hospitalized. Yep. So
the guy who won the fight was hospitalized?
No, he didn't win. That's the thing, is the guy on the bottom, he took him down, and however he choked him out or something was, because you see that guy, the guy who took all the shots is the guy who gets up at the end and kind of staggers away. The other guy's out. He's like laid out on the sand.
So he lost the stand-up battle, but won the grappling battle and ultimately the fight.
Which is, I think, if anyone in our modern day and age, both of those guys look like they trained some form of MMA, right? Like the punches the guy was throwing were not like, they were great punches, right?
They were
good form,
punches.
like proper punches. And then clearly when it went to the ground, the guy clearly knew, you could see him with his leg, even though he was on the bottom, his leg, he got the guy in whatever that jiu-jitsu move is. Wow. Apparently ambulance had to come, and he was taken to hospital and fully hospitalized.
Who got kicked out of the apartment?
I mean, I'm assuming the guy throwing punches and the guy who got hospitalized is the guy who got kicked out, because he was the rage-filled one, right? If you're getting kicked out, I mean, if you're the kicker out, then you're not going to be throwing punches. So
who knows? I don't know how the exchange went down, but you're right. Logic would indicate. Yeah,
logic would indicate. And so, but he has a new room, I guess, now at the hospital. So that's nice. And some nice medical bills probably to boot.
Here's what I love about that story now. I never really like to see a fight, to be honest. It kind of turns my stomach a little bit. Like I don't like to see it. But what I like about that story is the guy took those punches without really retaliating very quickly. Like the fact that he had fighting prowess in his arsenal and he did not bust it out after the third or fourth punch was it's very impressive.
It's true, but also in the comments, people were saying, look at how slow they're moving, and suggesting that there might have been substances involved, i.e. weed or booze, like
I don't think anybody...
Molassesy substances.
That's true, but I've never seen anybody get in a fight on weed.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Let's say booze.
But like maybe the puncher was boozed up, but maybe the punchee was just stoned, and so he took a couple blows, and then slowly it dawned on him that he was getting punched in the face.
I think we got to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and that now I gotta act, right? Takes him down.
That is definitely what happened now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear all that backstory, because it makes the fight a lot more interesting to me.
I mean,
to be perfectly honest.
of course, like, and I'm with you in terms of when I see two people fighting, I am not the combat sport kind of guy, right? Like even a UFC fight, I like boxing. I like stand-up classic boxing. That's pretty much it, right? Like the rest of it, ooh, like those, like, I don't know, the Sports Center moments when the guy gets kicked right in the face and they have like slow motion, just like, boom, like, I totally understand the appeal. That's not my thing. And I feel the same way watching a fight. I'm always inclined to break it up. But yeah, I guess people were entertained. And so good on those guys and good on the people who were entertained.
It just, we're becoming, like this is the downfall of civilization, essentially. Things become so gluttonous and you run out of problems. In Rome, they build the Colosseum for gladiators, or by the way, prisoners, to throw in with the lions because the people need entertainment. And that's kind of where we're at now. The UFC, certainly. And then things like this, if there are people standing around and applauding, which is the worst, when there's somebody actually getting a beating and everybody else is not only doing anything, but they're filming and applauding it. This is the downfall of civilization.
I mean, waiting for it to get worse too. Like when those guys were up, and when the one guy, because the guy who was getting punches to the head, not one person, like at that point you would have thought, okay, this has gone on long enough. He's got two solid. I mean, his face had to have been just a bloody mess at that point too, because he took 2 or 3 solid headbutts right to the nose. Like, there's no way he wasn't like kind of a bloody mess at that point.
Yeah.
But people are just like, woohoo!
I know.
Give it to him.
Insane.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably reflective of the culture of Huntington Beach, to be perfectly honest, and the long storied history of street fighters that come out of Huntington Beach. There's
Huntington's mayor was once Tito Ortiz himself.
Tito Ortiz. And before him, do you remember Tank Abbott?
Yeah.
Tank Abbott entered the UFC. I mean, he was the predecessor. He was the Huntington Beach bad boy before Tito Ortiz took that moniker.
Yeah.
And they used to give the style, they would give the name of the fighter, their age, and the style of martial arts that they practice. And, Hawai'i Gracie was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, obviously. Yeah. Somebody would be judo. There was a sumo wrestler. His was pit fighter. Which I'm not even sure is a real thing. I think it's just from Mortal Kombat.
That's really good.
So Tank Abbott shows up with a keg of a belly. His opponent has a 6-pack. He has a keg, right? And then he would just annihilate all of them with his wily pit fighter stylings. And I don't know if you know this. His name was David Lee.
Really?
Lee. Yeah, it was his actual David
awesome.
Lee Abbott, and obviously his nickname was Tank. He got a degree in history from Cal State Long Beach, which is where I got my degree in psychology. So I've got a lot in common with Tank Abbott, actually.
Love it. Those early days of UFC, what was it called? Was it called UFC back then?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I liked. I really remember in a young college student, like people would have like the bootleg video of it. Yeah. And I was fascinated, maybe just as a holdover from silly childhood stuff, of seeing which style is better. Does the karate guy beat the wrestler? And when I suppose UFC got boring to me is when you realize, oh wait, no, Hawai'i Gracie beats everyone. Mm-hmm. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu beats everyone. Everyone now does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and throws in a little kickboxing. And so it's all the same. I mean, there is the UFC style of fighting where I liked the karate guy in his gi versus the sumo guy in his, whatever, G-string.
I literally saw that fight. The karate guy came in and kicked the sumo guy in the teeth, and his teeth went flying into the crowd. That's not a joke. That was like UFC 4 or something. Yeah. It was fascinating to watch those two styles, and they had no rules. So not only were there no weight divisions, but there was no rules. So the karate guy ends up Keith something was the guy's name, but he ends up in some hold where he's kind of like pinned down, but he can get a fist free to punch the other guy in the nuts. And he's just punching him in the Speedo as hard as he can. And it was totally legal. And they'd have to fight. It was like like a surf contest with a bracket structure, so they have like
they had to fight
5
again.
fights by the end of the night, you know? So Hoist Gracie, if in the final, is just like exhausted after the night. And probably injured.
But that was real fun. And then
So much fun.
everybody learned right away, oh, yeah, can't beat BJJ. Which, again, any fight is going to like any fight with somebody who knows how to fight is going to go to the ground. And then the person with their crazy armbar, blah-de-blah, is the guy who's going to win the fight. And it's like, and that's the weird thing too. When, again, to your naked eye, guy who got punched in the head goes down on the bottom. He took the guy down on top of him, but clearly knew what he was doing enough to hospitalize him.
Incredible. Well, we got to do a ranking at some point of not only Huntington Beach's best fighters, Huntington Beach's best fights. Because if you reflect back to the riots of 2013, I guess 10 years now, that was right when like cell phone video became commonplace. And so the riots in the 80s, there's just news footage basically of fires and stuff. But this, and from like helicopter angles, in 2013, there was a bunch of point of view shots on the ground filming various fights. And the best one, which I haven't been able to find in years, I've searched for it a couple of times, was a guy at a stop sign. Like there was cars still trying to move through the streets, but all the rioting was taking place. So then they're throwing things at the cars and that sort of thing. So a guy was trying to get out off of Main Street, a driver and a passenger, and they're at a stop sign and somebody does something to the car. And the passenger gets out of the car, walks over, one punch KOs the guy who threw something. Then that guy's friend runs over to help. Boom, one more punch, that guy goes down. And in the course of 8 seconds, he knocks out 5 dudes with one punch each,
I remember that one.
And then like at that point, nobody wants a piece of him. So he gets back in the car, the crowd parts, and they make their turn and they exit. And it was like, wow, that was gnarly.
Man, to be able to have like a one punch arsenal, like just know I can take anyone down with my one punch would be a superpower that you would have to guard closely.
Which is Chuck Liddell. I mean, speaking UFC, Chuck Liddell from back in the day, he was from San Luis Obispo, and that was his thing. He would go out to bars and like look for fights essentially and just KO people.
Just one punch knockout. Yep.
Yeah. And then made his way into the UFC with that and continued to apply it in the UFC actually.
Yeah.
Well, hey, when does article number 5,000 happen? We're in the last 10, I feel.
We're in the last 10. I just crossed over, so we got 10 more. So I figure if I keep on pace, I was really trying to get 10 done by U.S. Open.
Yeah.
But, yeah, unfortunately, I just put one up today and forgot to mark it. Shoot, I'm going to have to go back and adjust. So I have 9 more.
$49.91?
Okay. I have 9 more.
Are you...
Yeah.
What is going to be the 5,000th? Have you mapped it yet?
I don't even know. Okay. Who knows what it's going to be?
It'll be a news story, though.
It'll maybe be about Sarah Brady.
Are you working on something?
No.
Okay. Just it's time for her to pop up again.
Yep.
Well, Pros in the Wild. I think maybe it should be a reflection on Pros in the Wild because this has become such a lauded segment.
It's so true.
Somebody won a wetsuit last week. Aaron on the North Shore won the Buell suit for that wonderful story about Laird Hamilton.
Phenomenal story.
Undeniably the best story that had come in throughout the month. By the way, there's been lots of great stories that have come through that I have not shared. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens. And I've got more that we're going to continue through this month with and give another wetsuit away. So keep them coming. But I want those people who sent stories that didn't get read on air to at least get acknowledged. Negatron sent 3 stories in one email.
Epic.
There was a Chad Muska story that was excellent, even though Chad Muska is a skater. Rob Machado story that sullies his reputation slightly, and I can't quite vet whether it's true, so I'm apprehensive to share it. I sent it to Rob, and I was just like, do you care to comment on this? There's an Adriano story. There was a Kobe Aberton story. But ultimately, the stories don't have necessarily the structure of that Laird Hamilton story with like a setup and a zing and then like reflections. They're just encountering these people in the wild. You know what I mean? And they're great stories. They're just not necessarily the same.
I mean, I think what makes a pro in the wild story as this develops into its own genre is There's also a level of surprise in and the surprise could even be that this person is exactly, or this pro is exactly what everybody thinks he is, right? Like Tom Curran stories in the wild are oftentimes. Did you get the footage too of Tom Curran in his singlet?
I'm not sure.
I love when a segment or like a pro in the wild thing or whatever, we talk about it and then somebody will send photos. So there was the pro in the wild of Tom Curran in the Santa Barbara surf contest, surfing crappy. It was Travis. Travis talked about it. Yeah. Surfing Tom Curran, surfing crap and just coming out. And somebody sent me, who was the contest photographer of that contest, sent me all the contest pictures of Curran, which is epic.
Amazing.
I'll kick them over to you. Yeah, it's like, Curran exactly as Travis described. Garbage surf, Curran just looking kind of Curran-y. Perfect.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, the surf world is small enough to where those dots get connected within a week of us publishing stuff,
Yep, that's great.
Well, I want to take a moment before I read you a couple more pros in the wilds. The Laird story that we discussed came right before a Forbes article that you covered about Laird Hamilton. A writer for Forbes interviewed Laird in the softest ball interview I've ever seen in my life. I don't even understand why they do these interviews. Are they for like...
It must have been it was like things I do when I travel. So it had a theme, and it was probably brought to you by Delta or something like that.
Yeah, had to. I'm just like, what is the purpose of this article? And if you are a journalist and a writer, you should be ashamed of yourself if that's the assignment you're getting. You know what I mean? It's that bad.
It's the code little guy or the AI algorithm who's just like kicking Laird questions about his travel style.
But to your point, Laird never doesn't deliver. Laird is always interesting. It's a terrible interview, terrible questions, and yet Laird gives these insights that are like, man, that's kind of interesting.
I had no idea that Laird Hamilton had any taste at all. Laird is luxury Laird Hamilton. He carries a Yves Saint Laurent travel bag. As his go-to. Like there was elements in there of Laird's, which I don't picture Laird as totally bourgeois. Of course, he splits time between Malibu and Maui. Should come as no surprise that he lives a luxury dripped lifestyle, but he does.
Well, I feel like after reading that you've modeled your life after him secretively.
I didn't know, and now I know. It's pretty great.
Well, so question, I was like, that Yves Saint Laurent bag, right? Duffel carry-on is what he's talking about. He's like, I've had it for 12 years. The thing's bulletproof. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what those things cost, right? So I Google it real quick. Let's say it's between $2,000 and $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay? Depending on which one you get.
Sure.
Or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could be talked into aspiring to buying that for myself at some point if it was that much better. However, I have bags that are 12 years old, that are bulletproof, that are great still, that cost me less than $100. And so that's where the question is like, what is the difference? It's the branding. That's all it is, right?
It's the difference is, I think the quality is better. It may... A cheaper bag obviously can last just as long, but this one was really built, especially like Hermes, right? Like, of course, an Hermes carry-on, let's say, would run you from men's, say, starting at $5,000, right? Except that bag was genuinely hand-stitched by an artisan in France, by a French artisan who's, like the whole Hermes story, like...
You're buying the story is what it is, though. It's not at a certain point, the materials are equivalent.
Sure, but again, this is specific to Hermes. The Saint Laurent could be, made in Vietnam or whatever. Who knows about that? But if you're going to get a quality bag, but then also, so you get it, and sure, okay, maybe it's the same-ish quality leather as something, or blah, 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 except you yourself will feel better carrying that into the airport. You will walk a little taller. Doors will open a little quicker. You will get that upgrade, or you will scoot right into your life. Improves in ways that you can't quite put a finger on with the luxury items.
It's a good argument. I understand the argument. Dress for the job you want, not the job you have, and you kind of level up to it. I
Yep.
understand that. The question, I guess, is everybody's budget then at that point, because is the Hermes bag doubly better than the Yves Saint Laurent bag, or is it just the difference between a nickel and a dime to you? And if it's the
No, I
difference
think, I
between a
mean,
nickel and a dime, spend the dime and get the better one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Hermes is like, I think for leather goods is above everything, right?
Well,
And I would love for feedback, but as I understand it,
have you seen that documentary about Ferragamo,
yeah,
made by the guy who made Call Me by Your Name?
yep,
That I forget what that filmmaker's name is, the Italian dude. But yeah, I watched that Ferragamo documentary and I'm like, I get it. Like that came from a tiny village in Italy where cobbler at the time in the 1800s, being a shoe cobbler was the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
But he learned it from the ground up, made his way to America, made his way to Santa Barbara, which is where films were being made at the time, and then made shoes for Hollywood, basically, for the biggest celebrities, because he had developed that craft. And so I understood, like, he knew every process of shoemaking and made the best shoes, period, full stop. But 150 years, 200 years later, everybody knows how to do that. And there are shoes that are being made for $100, $200, $300, leather, handmade shoes in Italy to those same specifications that don't have the legacy and the story. And that's why they're only 200 instead of 2,000, you know?
it's true. And if you are gonna go out and find the handmade Italian shoe, et cetera, then good on you. The one that's really crafted, but also in terms of shoes, like you can't beat a Gucci loafer. I just got a new pair of Gucci loafers for Father's Day. Ooh-wee. They're like, you cannot beat a Gucci loafer for a shoe. Like, it's just, that's what they do, right? It is specifically Gucci loafers. Like, Gucci clothes can come and go and, their belt, whatever. A Gucci loafer, a horse bit loafer, you can't beat. Some things are just best in class.
I'm going to wait till Laird chimes in on that one.
Yeah.
The other thing that you did not mention in that Laird article, though, that I thought was really interesting and a big reveal was he only foils now. No more surfing.
Totally. I almost threw that in, but then I thought it sort of just went without mentioning. Like, it's funny the guys who age, and I think this happens. Like, I know Al Merrick at the end was only doing stand up because his back was such that
Yeah.
it hurt and whatnot. Where I think the yeah, it's funny or not funny. It's just, I think, true that at some point, not everybody, but it seems like that shortboard or popping up, that kind of thing, it just gets to be too much. And so if you're Laird, you just go out and foil.
Yeah, it's more interesting in a lot of ways. The foiling is. I started doing it a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
Yeah,
got a foil?
That's why I went to North Carolina, was for like a foiling mission.
Lesson.
Yeah, lesson,
Wow.
like a intensive 3-4 day camp actually.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
look at- that's a shocker.
Yeah, well, everybody's been talking about it and speaking of the virtues, and like it opens up the number of days that you can be in the water throughout the year, you know. But ultimately, what it is, and I think what Laird's tapped into is your brain is operating on so many different levels when you're out farther away from the waves and you're surveying a vaster amount of water. You're looking at lumps that are coming in from 100 yards out and aiming on how you're going to get there and use that energy. And so there's just, it's like it's more intellectually stimulating than surfing. Surfing becomes boring compared to stuff like that. And you're going faster, by the way. You're using a lot more muscles in your body. Like it's more engaging in your body.
Were you paddling in, or how are you getting in?
Yeah. So the way that they do it with the lessons are you start on the E foil just to get comfortable, and then go to a toe foil, like behind a jet ski.
Yep.
And then from there, take one into the ocean and try to catch waves and do the surf foiling.
At the end of your 4-day, what did you grade your foil ability? Question 1. Question 2, are you going to get a foil and foil here?
Yeah, I am going to get one. I'm not in a rush to get it, but I am going to get one for sure. I see the value of it. And there's just so much, I don't know, it really appeals to me in a lot of ways. But in terms of how I was at the end of 4 days, I was like a very beginning level surfer. Like I could catch a wave and get to my feet and then wipe out, basically. Like get to my feet and get the thing lifted up, fully
Yep.
flying, and, kind of, let's say, last 3 to 5 seconds once I'm fully flying before I eat crap.
Okay.
So it's just very, very hard, man.
Yeah.
It's
but you're into progressing.
Yeah.
You're on a new path, and this is what you're going to do.
Totally.
Ending
I don't
with
think
Laird.
I'll give up surfing. I'll still surf, but I think this will become part of the repertoire for sure.
What learning or knowing what you know now, where is your ideal foil Southern California spot?
Ooh.
Because it's not in the beach break. It ain't. I saw some dude yesterday at Seaside Reef, where there's obviously no waves here. He was like past it to boneyards or whatever, tabletops or whatever it's called down there. And he was just lapping, right? There was nobody out there. There was obviously, right? Don't think you can have a foil in public, right? Or in...
People try, but you shouldn't. It's poor form.
Yeah.
I would say somewhere that has reef with lots of swell, let's say, where it's kind of like maybe the waves are breaking on the inside of the reef, uniformly, but kind of outside there is swell that kind of pops up and doesn't necessarily cap or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, then you can kind of tap into that energy and kick out of one and get another one. Because what the guy who was teaching us the lessons was doing was he'd paddle for the junkiest little wave. Like I'm kind of sitting out the back waiting for a set wave, and he's sitting way inside, and he'd just paddle in and get a junk wave simply to get to his feet and get going. And he would get up and riding, pump, and then kick off the back of the wave, pump past me, and then get the set wave that I was waiting for, essentially.
Okay, yeah.
And ride it. So I was waiting for a good wave, thinking I'm using the opportunity, the benefit of the good wave to learn what I'm doing, and that's really not what you're doing. You're just looking for a chip shot to get to your feet.
It sounds like a life lesson there.
Yeah, seriously. It really does. That's what I love about foiling. It's like a metaphor for life. Anyways, Laird's foiling, which, you know what? I got to level up to the Yves Saint Laurent bag and the foil.
Better life, man.
Well, congratulations on Laird for having a banner week between Forbes and our little show. And congratulations to Aaron for winning the Buell suit, buellsurf.com for those of you who want one. And then we're going to give away another one at the end of this month. So all of the submissions from today will go into August's running.
I'm excited to hear what our submissions are today.
We're starting from scratch. Yariel from the Space Coast says his story is called Goat in the Wild. What's up, DLS and Chaz? I just wanted to share a quick 2-stage Pros in the Wild story. I came up through my teens in the 90s, surfing up and down the Florida coast. One particular Lake Atlantic day, after scouring the Space Coast for any semblance of swell, I found myself at dusk with a buddy perched on the rails of the boardwalk that leads out to the first peak at Sebastian Inlet, pondering our ride home without ever even laying on our surfboards. Then, as stealthy as a ninja, appeared one Kelly Slater, the current world champ, holding an extremely sexy Channel Islands under one arm and an extremely exotic girl on the other. As he walked past us, he looked over and said, "What's up, Groms?" We were in awe, but also confused. Not only was it flat, but it was high tide and onshore. What happened next was surreal. We had been watching it for an hour. It was completely flat, yet 1 minute after Kelly paddled out, a set wave was refracting off the jetty. We watched as he caught countless waves and blasted the craziest airs we had ever seen at that point in time. Then, just as stealthily as he appeared, he was gone. A few weeks passed and my buddy and I found ourselves in a similar situation, this time further north at 13th Street, Cocoa. We sat there again, pondering what we should do as we looked out at the flat ocean again. Then a luxed out Mercedes SUV pulls up and rolls down the windows. In the driver's seat was Kelly, who just looked at us, laughed, and said, "Hey, Groms, you want to catch the high tide at Smyrna?" We looked at each other in disbelief. We jumped in and tried not to act all like aggressive fanboys, despite being totally enamored. Honestly, the whole ride seemed like it was just any other ride with your friends. Just a couple of guys blasting punk music that we had heard in surf videos and talking about our favorite sections the whole ride. In the water, after the first 2 waves, Slater paddles up and said, "Airtime." Then he spent the rest of the session sending every variation of air you could imagine. Anyways, a bit long-winded, but for as much as we kicked down the goat, he was just another surf-stoked rat from Florida like the rest of us. It is strange now to be retelling this story on a podcast. Florida was such a strange and transient place. I've got plenty more stories, from backstage with Donovan, watching Curran inside at the inlet in NSB, 5 a.m. nose beers with Bruce, beers with the Malloys, Perkins sessions with the Goods, many random Lopez sightings. It was all the norm in Florida at the time. Keep up the work, Yariel.
Love it, Yariel. That is great insight. And I love Kelly taking kids on rides. Look at that.
I do, and I think he summed it up nicely with, you know, it's easy to make fun of now, but he was just a surf-stoked kid in Florida. Like,
totally. And the making fun of, again, is maybe it seems... I mean, maybe when I call him bad names and things like that, call him a shithead. What do I call Kelly sometimes?
I don't know. Butthole?
Dumbass. Dumb shit. I think I call him a dumb shit a lot. He is that now, but that's okay. Like, it's all in love.
Is it?
Well, I mean, sure. If Kelly called me a dumb shit, I would say it's sweet. It's true.
Well, Kelly, surf-stoked kid from Florida. That's hard to not sympathize with.
Yep.
The second story, so that's the front runner. He's winning a wetsuit right now until we read another one. Sunny Day in Point Loma by Leroy in San Diego. I've lived in and around San Diego for the better part of 50 years, a skateboarder who surfs. Surfing with pros and former pros was never that impressive, with obvious exceptions like Justin Poston, Rob Machado, Joel Tudor, Rob Bain, Hans Hedemann, Skip Fry, Saxon Boucher, the Weatherlys, to name a few. These types of pros are really good at what they do, but as a skateboarder and a Mexican, I was always gravitated to the Hawaiians that I saw in the Wave Warriors videos. The Hoes, Dane Kealoha, Johnny Boy. They were more radical and almost violent in their approach. It reminded me of skating. They had dark skin like me. They were the surfers that I watched and that I tried to emulate. Fast forward to the early 2000s. I'd surfed everywhere in San Diego. I have respect for and a disregard for localism. San Diego is all bark and no bite. Countless times I've seen an altercation idle at words. I started spending time at an infamously localized spot at Sunset Cliffs, a notorious clown show of grumpy locals, stiff never-have-beens and their kids. The demographic, mostly upper middle class, comfortable white men, bigoted, and as local as they come. I spent 5 years working my way silently into the pecking order, getting my waves, never burning anyone, no leash. I'd surf the wrong tides, the wrong swells for years. It was Bird from Bird's Surf Shed who opened the door for me because I ride weird boards and we both had a mutual love for leaks on white enchiladas. One day, I'm out with just 2 other grumpy locals, just 3 of us on a pleasant head-high morning, 3 to 4 waves per set every 10 minutes, and enough playing field that we don't really have to interact with one another. You know, perfect. That's when I noticed the 2 locals sitting tight in a huddle, talking, pointing at the shore, seemingly irritated. I'm nearsighted, so I can't see the shore, but I've seen this 1,000 times before. The 2 grumpy locals devising a plan to dispatch whoever's paddling out in hopes of adding a couple more waves to their count. The surfer on the shore starts paddling out, and the grumpy locals start posturing. I think this is great. No attention towards me. A set comes through. We all get waves, and we're scattered. And then on the last wave, the last wave is headed directly for the newcomer, who I now notice has particularly massive shoulders. He lowers his head, casually strokes into the wave, slides into pig dog stance, and now is easily identifiable as one Sunny Garcia. He sticks his arm in the wave to stall, then releases and weaves around the hook. No leash, just gets absolutely drained and comes flying out, just like I've seen in the movies and unlike anything that I've ever seen in real life. The grumpy locals are pissed and they don't know why, but it's clear to me, Sunny just surfed their wave better than anyone, and it was his very first wave there. He proceeded to do this over and over again, and then hit the lips so hard and throw so much spray that he'd actually be hitting it again before the spray from the first turn even landed. Faster, bigger, better than any surfing I had ever seen. Incredible stuff. Eventually, he lost his board, and I retrieved it on my way back out, and I paddled it to him. Quote, I'm thinking to myself, I got to say something cool. Here's my opportunity to be heard by this impressive man. I slide the board to him, and he says, thanks, with that little speech impediment. And I melt down and just say, thank you, Sonny. Like Ralphie in the Christmas Story. I screwed the pooch. What a queef. I watched Sonny take a breath, paddle out to the grumpy locals, and squash the animosity. Turns out that he had just signed with BYB, out of North County, Backyard Boards. So he was spending a lot of time in the area. That day changed me. Watching how a true professional approaches the wave made me a better surfer. That aggressive but accepting approach to the wave was so informative. His let the surfing do the talking attitude was radical, and how he moved water was like witnessing blunt force trauma. Thank you, Sonny. You made us proud. Sincerely, Leroy.
I want to put Leroy in the pole position.
I agree.
It's a great story with Sunny in particular. I'll tell you what, the lack of interest in the Sunny saga is baffling to me.
Well, I got another story, but let's get into that for a minute. What is the Sunny update?
Well, okay, so there's no real update, right? But there was a Instagram account of, is it Free Sunny Garcia?
Something like that.
Some, like, basically saying he's under a conservatorship. Nobody knows, nobody's seen him, or kids haven't seen him in, I think, 3 years. Is that what it is? Something like that. And so the first Free Sunny Instagram account got killed, but a second one came up. But now there's court documents. There is people getting sued for violence. There's, caregivers, I think, is suing somebody. But like, there's a ton of weird smoke. Sunny's girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, Lori Park, is one of the first Google engineers, right? Is very wealthy, but is one of those very wealthy people has basically scrubbed themselves from the internet. So you can't find anything about her. But whatever's happening is a story, and the lack of interest from both the surf world big and the surf world small is utterly confusing to me.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I don't think it's a lack of interest. I think it's such an ugly subject, and we don't have all of the information, so it's difficult to invest yourself or to speak on it without knowing who's telling the truth or what's what. But I thought Derek's article, I thought, teased it apart just enough for me to understand that I actually don't feel comfortable engaging in it.
I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's something, if Sunny is in fact not, I mean, the assumption is that Sunny's a vegetable, right?
Yeah, that's part of it.
I mean, but
yes.
if he is not, and he's in Texas, his kids can't see him, there's just enough there where, and where are Sunny's friends kind of? Like, I mean, I think that, Sinead O'Connor passed away this week, and I think it was Bob Geldof, the musician, who was friends with her, excoriated the press and everybody else for basically writing tributes to her. All the people who came out afterwards and said what she meant and blah, blah, blah. He was like, none of you were here when she was alive. These things should have been being said and written when she was alive.
And specifically, those people writing those tributes were the ones who vilified her when she did speak out against the powers that be.
Precisely. And so I think there's a similar thing with Sunny, like where Sunny's not dead yet. So when Sunny dies, there's for sure going to be, this outpouring of everybody taking to Instagram and, lionizing and writing tributes. But where is somebody in a powerful position, like Kelly Slater, for example, who, was friends with Sunny? Why is Kelly not asking, hey, just for information,
Maybe he's investigated it. I would presume his close friends have investigated it privately and probably gotten answers that were not worth sharing publicly. Let's presume that they are satisfied with the answers that they've got, that he's getting the care that he needs. And then at that point, what point is there to share that information publicly.
I mean, I just think there is a point in the public interest, and Sunny was a public figure, just to say, even if they know something, they don't have to go into detail, but just say, hey, look, I know that this is an awkward situation, but I think it's being handled as well as it could be handled. Right?
I think that would be the responsibility of Lori Park if she is the caregiver. I think she should share that update. For whatever reason, she has chosen not to. I will say what I gleaned from Derek's writing was, well, I'll give you the update, but we should give people the backstory first real quick to bring them up to speed. A number of years ago, Sunny Garcia was found in I think a hotel room in Oregon.
Yeah.
Allegedly having hung himself. So he was found hanging. Is that what it was?
Yeah. I mean, I think he was found, but he wasn't dead. Taken to the hospital, revived, came out of his coma in what appeared to be a, not
vegetative
all
state.
Yeah, not all there, right? Like,
right.
And then after that, he was taken to Texas.
Well, in that state, you need a tremendous amount of full-time care and medical care, right? And so his family doesn't, or he didn't have the resources to cover that indefinitely, but he had a girlfriend, Lori Park, who does. And so apparently she took the responsibility and then went into hiding essentially. So we haven't seen updates, but what we had seen were the account that you're talking about, the free Sunny Garcia account, where I thought it was the voice of his children, basically saying, we don't have access to our dad. We want access, and Lori is not giving us access, and she's basically holding him captive, Well, the lawsuit that was filed within this past week was from Lori Park against Sunny Garcia's father, apparently, for $1 million. And the lawsuit states that Sunny Garcia's father has made false accusations about Lori keeping Sunny held hostage. And it also indicates that the police have actually been out. Like, he calls the cops. He's been there to see Sunny and then calls the cops and says, this woman's holding my son hostage. The cops came out and none of that was substantiated. So the lawsuit, it seems like she's doing what she feels is right. And the authorities apparently have come out and surveyed the situation and probably have sided with her based on this. But she can't keep fending off this public attack from his family. And so she's filed this lawsuit to protect her against that and to show publicly that she's actually providing him the care that he needs.
Totally. And I'm not suggesting that Lori Park is the bad guy here, or that, there's just, I think, there just needs to be some kind of public, to pretend that Sunny wasn't a public figure.
Yeah.
He was a public figure. And so there is, some kind of duty to at least tell the public everything's okay, it's under control, or whatever, right? Like the secrecy around it is what is troubling, and the lack of interest in that secrecy.
Well, I think that his family, I understand their side of it too. Their idea, whatever their expectation is for level of care, is not being met in their mind, right? And so Lori is saying, I'm doing it to my standards, and I'm the one who's actually here doing it, and I'm the one who's actually paying for it. So, that's where the disconnect is. And so the family is being very public on social media, and she's taking that as defamation. And so she's protecting herself as she knows. But I understand both sides, but it is such a delicate subject that it feels ugly to try to parse.
Yeah, I mean, and it does, but again, I think there is some value there, and not to keep going, but
reaching out to Lori might be the way to.
She's really, there's like, I mean, I'm trying to find a way to reach Lori, because like her, and of course she could say no comment all day, but it's rough.
The worst part about it is reading the outpouring of, from his daughter, from his children on that Instagram account. It's just whether they are justified or maybe they've misstepped with Lori or whatever the case happens to be. It's just sad to have somebody wanting access to their dad that badly. and not being able to have it, knowing that he's still alive,
Yeah, it's really rough.
It is very,
very,
rough.
very ugly.
Well, we've got another story that
Will uplift us.
hopefully it's Sunny with a side of Andy is the title.
Sweet.
So, hello, David and Chaz. This is Scott writing in from Misawa, Japan, I presume is how you pronounce it. As a staunch Grit listener and an ardent supporter of anything Chaz, loved Welcome to Paradise, Now Go to Hell. I've been a devoted follower of the Pros in the Wild series. I've been touched by the listeners' tales, each one stirring in me an urge to share my own story. However, being a man of the old school, a believer in the less spoken, the better, I never felt compelled to narrate my experience beyond the casual chats over beers with my closest surfing comrades. Yet, after listening to the show, I was inspired. It felt right to share a tale that might reshape perceptions about one of our greatest legends and perhaps perpetuate the narrative around another. It has been exactly 20 years since this story took place. Some memories have faded and exact words have probably changed, but this is how it happened to the best of my recollection. The story unravels in 2003, a year etched into my memory as my wife was 6 months pregnant with our first child. We embarked on a journey, driving from Sydney to the Gold Coast and back in a camper van. We drove our way up and down the coast while I surfed, soaking in the thrills of Australia pre-social media. It was the lead up to the first ASP event of the season at Snapper. With a multitude of pro surfers and their entourages descending upon the site, I decided to pitch camp at a lesser known yet high quality Point Break a little south, back on the New South Wales side of the border. So, on to the heart of the story. Almost immediately after paddling out... Sorry, my dog's freaking out. Mailman must be here. Almost immediately after paddling out, I observed none other than Sunny Garcia, brazenly cutting off a young Grom on a set wave. My initial reaction was disbelief. That looked like Sunny. And then recognition. Yep, that was Sunny. And yep, that's par for the course. Following Sunny, Shea Lopez caught the next wave, then Corey Lopez, and then, lo and behold, Andy Irons. This was the year after his inaugural world title. Incredibly, this humble offbeat spot was invaded by a who's who of the surfing world of the time. As a lifelong surfer from Florida who'd attended university in Hawaii in the mid-'80s, I was awestruck by guys from my home state and legends from Hawaii. Sunny cemented his reputation with an unapologetic passion for burning, backpaddling, and snaking, making it into an art form. No one was spared, from old men to the youngest kid. He was very equitable, I learned that word in your last podcast, in his pillaging. He would have made Christian Fletcher blush with his no F's given attitude. The Lopez brothers, meanwhile, were cruising, not hassling, and effortlessly riding the best waves. As for Andy, he didn't catch many waves, but the ones that he did were a sight to behold. And there was one incident that is seared into the cringe compartment of my brain. A set rolled in, and, of course, Andy went first. I got maybe the fourth wave of the set, doing a few turns and speeding through the middle part of the point. As a goofy footer, this is a tricky section to make. As I started to pump to create speed to float a long section, I spotted Andy paddling out. He was right in the zone where I needed to land the float to round the section. I was certain that I could maneuver past him since I saw him paddling towards the shoulder, and so I committed to the move. Mid-paddle, he seemed to reassess and be concerned that I might actually have the speed to float all the way to where he was. And in that moment, he panicked and began to paddle towards the inside. Caught in the momentum, I was mid-float when he changed direction. My miscalculation and his sudden redirection led to our paths intersecting at precisely the wrong moment. And just like that, I found myself on a collision course with AI. We connected and then both bailed as our boards tangled. Underwater, my mind raced with thoughts of facing Sunny and AI's wrath on the beach, or worse, catching false cracks by the world champ himself. Despite being a decade older than Andy, I was panicking, thinking I had ran over the reigning world champ. Thankfully, when we surfaced, there was an exchange of awkward apologies. AI surprisingly took the blame, saying that he shouldn't have started paddling for the inside. It was a strange moment for both of us, As we started paddling back out, I said, "Hey man, I just want to wish you the best of luck this year. I hope you win another title." And being a huge fan, I was genuinely meant every word. Andy paused, sat up on his board, turned around. He was about a meter or two ahead of me, and he said, "Thank you for saying that," with his voice laced with sincerity. "It means a lot to me, knowing that I have surfers like you supporting me." He shook my hand, and with that, turned back around and continued paddling up the point, leaving me trailing far behind. I couldn't help but imagine him regaling his crew later with a story about how some kook ran him over. About an hour later or so, I paddled back in, strolled up to the camper, and perched on the headland overlooking the point. My wife excitedly remarks, "Andy Irons is out there." I nonchalantly respond, "Yeah, I know. I ran him over." Initially, she chuckled, thinking that I was just pulling her leg, but she recognized my serious expression and that I wasn't joking. I relay the story to her, and we both start laughing. Then she curiously asks, "Who is that guy burning everybody?" And I tell her, "It's Sunny." My wife, in her quintessential matter-of-fact way, simply says, "Oh," and breaks into a laugh. My wife is Japanese. She doesn't know surfing, but somehow she's gleaned enough to know about Sunny. That's when you know that you've truly transcended all barriers. You've become a legend, known across cultures and beyond the surfing community, if only for your infamy. I often reflect on this experience when I read things that do not put Andy in the greatest light. As for my encounter, Andy was the epitome of a professional and a gentleman. Sometimes I am glad that I ran him over just so that I could have had this experience. I guess the moral of the story is, if you really want to find out what kind of a person your hero is, run him over. All right, guys, thanks for all the great content and allowing me to share my story. Scott.
Scott, love it. Beautiful. I'm going to put Scott in the lead, to be honest.
Wow.
Running over a pro. Like, there's a lot of getting sprayed by a pro. There's a lot of, blah-de-blah. But running over Andy Irons is, that's entirely unique.
Yeah,
With
I totally
the perspective,
agree.
too. With the perspective, Andy, cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Love
Great
that story,
story.
top to bottom.
Great story sent in from Japan, no less, which makes it extra cool, I think.
If Scott maintains, that would be legendary if Scott maintained a whole month's worth of lead. But if he does, Japan needs wetsuits.
That's true.
It's cold water over there.
That's true. By the way, Aaron, who won the wetsuit last month, was traveling in New Zealand when I sent him the email.
Perfect.
I know, and he's like, "Man, it is freezing here. I wish I had this wetsuit for this trip."
Can't he just get it sent straight to New Zealand?
Yeah, maybe. He's probably not going to be there for that long.
Yeah,
I think he's on vacation. So.
Extend your date. Extend your vacation.
Well, let's do a Tools to Live By, brought to you by Veyer Watches. VeyerWatches.com, our favorite watch brand. We were talking about luxury products and Laird earlier. This is the example that I was kind of making, the metaphor that I was making with, there's handmade Italian leather shoes now that are just a fraction of the price of Ferragamo's, right? This is Veyer. Veyer exists in this modern market where they have access to the best quality materials. They have all the technology, obviously, that any of the fanciest watches has. They're assembled in America by craftsmen, like you said, and it's like a fraction of the price.
It is quality is quality. And Veyer is as quality a watch as I've ever had.
Totally. You know what I realized after working with Veyer for a while is the watch market that existed just prior is conglomerates, and they own all of the luxury brands and they own the low tier brands. And so you either get quality and you pay a handsome fee for it, or you get not quality that's inexpensive. That left a gap for Veyer to come in and be like, we can just do this locally, service our local community, build them to our specifications, and the consumer saves money.
It's a beautiful watch that genuinely works. I wear it surfing all the time. It's really, truly a watch worth having.
Yeah, we use the solar dial that doesn't have battery. You never have to charge or never have to wind it. It's just runs on solar power. I think 30 minutes of sun exposure on the dial gives it 6 months of power. So you're never going to run out of power with that thing.
People talk about these days how why do I need a watch? I have a watch in my pocket. It's my phone. Dang phone is A, going to die at some point. B, be a man. Wear a watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's an accessory.
Yep.
Veyer Watches, VAER Watches.com, promo code Splendor15 for 15% off, free USA shipping, easy returns, waterproof warranty. All right, so I'm pilfering this submission for Tools to Live By from Gen C's story about
Great.
Surf Girls Hawaii. It was a confusion about passwords. She said, I broke Amazon, and Chaz made me do it. All I wanted to do was watch Surf Girls Hawaii, a series recently released on Amazon Prime. Chaz tried to lend me his account, but he didn't know the password. I'm not judging. I forget passwords with reckless abandon. In fact, I managed to lock 2 accounts on Amazon that I didn't even know that I had. So the rule that we need is, how do you manage passwords? Do you write them down? Do you keep a spreadsheet? Where does this is
It
a
is
problem we
really
have.
hard. I need the listener to, 99.99% of the time, I have the answer. I have the perfect solution to the problem. The password one is one that haunts me because I will use a password and then I'll use that for a couple years and then inevitably you forget it and can't, or not forget it, you forget it for something and then have to do another one, and so then another password will creep in, right? Or you'll have to throw an exclamation mark on it, or you'll have to add another number or something.
The deviations.
And so it's a version of the same, but then you throw it's just, my password situation is a mess. And don't give me the stinking Apple keychain, because I've had to reset my keychain a couple times, probably because I forgot the password. And now everything is lost again, and you're resetting everything again. I'm in a perpetual kind of between, like I am one login away from having to reset every password in my life and forgetting that again.
So I agree with you. The Apple keychain or the Google that remembers all your passwords for you is a problem to me, because if everything is stored hidden behind one password, then it nullifies the need to have all those various passwords, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a solution for you that I'm going to offer to our listeners.
Thank you.
I have an equation in my brain that I can apply to generate a unique password on any website.
That you can remember?
It's an equation. So I'm apprehensive to give too much information about it because I don't want to reveal what my equation is. But let me think of a version of it. Like it would be, let's say your name and the name of the website, maybe.
Okay.
So that would make that would make it unique. Like David, Amazon.
Yeah.
And then a sequence of letters, and the sequence of letters, and you're going to need an exclamation point or some sort of other, because it makes you do that. So let's say the sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4. So David, Amazon, 1, 2, 3, 4. But instead of the 1, I'm going to use an exclamation point, or instead of the 2, I'm going to use a question mark. But it's the same every time. So that's the password for Amazon. But then if I'm going to use Netflix, it would be David, Netflix. 1 question mark 3, 4. And then if it's so it is unique to the website because it has the website's name in it, but you can remember it every time you go because it's the same.
I am excited to lose my current batch of passwords so I can start doing this.
Okay, now I gave you a super generic example by using my own name and the name of the website, so you can't, that's going to be, if somebody could hack and figure out what your equation is at that point, because it's so simple and obvious. So you want to develop a little bit more of a sophisticated equation than the one that I just offered, but that is my solution.
The equation is the answer. That is the tool to live by.
There you go.
I understand now.
You are welcome.
Gen C, you need to use this too.
Yeah, Gen C, you're welcome. I can't believe she doesn't have Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's shocking.
I was blown away. I'm like, I thought everybody just had it because it pays for itself with free shipping.
Not only that, but you get the watch stuff for free, I think, I didn't understand it. I mean, to be honest, too, I was trying to share my wife's account with Gen C. I don't have my own Amazon Prime because you don't need 2 Amazon Prime accounts in a household. No, not at all. But it is, the best $100 a year that I ever spend every single year. I earn that money back times 10 on Amazon. Speaking of, did you watch Surfer Girls?
So Surfer Girls, long-awaited Amazon TV series Surfer Girls Hawaii, ruined by spectacularly untalented man is the title of Gen C's article.
Gen C was having trouble with this because she really likes the girls in Surf Girls, and she really likes the creator of this series, right? It
Yeah.
was, as she talks about in the article, it was called something else before, which I can't remember where it was, YouTube.
Yeah, I forget the name of it as well.
But anyway, so it got, bought by Amazon essentially, reproduced. Who is the executive producer?
Eric Logan.
What does this turn into? Absolute garbage. Like, I watched it infuriated at Eric Logan. You know me and Eric Logan. I kind of go back and forth trying to think, well, was he so bad? We always know he was so bad, but he was a clown we could laugh at, right? There was something in his clownness that blah, 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 blah. Eric Logan sucks bad. He sucked awful at his job. He has zero idea anything surf and actively takes potentially good things and makes them trash. Like, that thing is so awful.
It's so true. We've directed some of our ire at Eric Logan towards his creepiness on, with other human beings on tour, and like some of his, moral missteps personally. But if we just throw all that aside and just look at the body of work, is
garbage.
Objectively garbage.
It is awful. It is worse than garbage.
So from Gen Z, I think Gen Z really nailed it. Exactly how I felt watching. I only watched one episode.
Yeah, me too. Who wants to watch more than that?
Well, I wanted to watch the whole season, but I literally had to force myself to finish the first episode because you can identify, look, if you have a crappy meal, you can identify 3 bites in that it's crappy. It's not going to get better on the 8th bite. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened here. And I had an opinion about it, but she summed it up really well, I think, with her writing. And so she said, what's frustrating about Surfer Girls Hawaii is that it grew from a compelling concept. These women are plainly strong, engaging, passionate characters. Tell me a story about these women growing up in Hawaii, finding their way in some of the world's toughest lineups. Tell me about their fears, frustrations, and joys. Tell me about what it meant for them to be Hawaiian and about how their heritage shapes their relationship with the ocean and the wider world. That's the story Eric Logan steamrolled in his desperate effort to sell contest surfing to the masses. And I think we all know it by now, that the masses are just not going to buy what he's selling. The story that didn't get told, that might have drawn people to follow these women and their journey, that might have shown the world something about how beautiful women surfing and Hawaii is, I'm not sure that he even saw the story or its value, and that's the shame. And I think that fully nails it. And you were talking about this with the U.S. Open compared to watching Devin ride a longboard. Eric Logan doesn't understand the difference. Eric Logan sees people riding longboards in the shore break at Huntington and sees Devin Howard and goes, these are the same things.
That's
sweet.
surfing.
Devin's not for sale. That we own this over here. Let's just package this and sell it to everybody else. Completely misunderstanding the value of the story.
I mean, asinine and to the point, but then the whole thing, like, now you have made the Chris Cotes and Joe Turpels and stuff of the world accomplices in your idiocy.
Yeah.
Of you make them sit and watch garbage and say, this is great. Like, for those who definitely shouldn't watch Surfer Girls. Is it Surf Girls Hawaii or Surfer Girls?
Surf Girls Hawaii.
Surf Girls Hawaii.
It's the worst name ever, by the way.
It's just dumb. It's so dumb. But exactly what Jen says, the first episode at least is built around this sunset contest where the waves are knee high. I mean, those waves were awful, right? And they're trying to get the angle and make it look dynamic and trying to build in the intensity of this. Who's going to win, with the burp, hooter at the end, when on a waist-high wave at best, and they're surfing them as, well as I guess those waves can be surfed, but it's all awful. Like, it looks awful. It's clearly awful. Eric Logan is shame on Eric Logan forevermore.
So the original series that was on YouTube
Eric Logan
was called Surf Girls Kaikaina.
Yeah.
Owned by Alex Morgan, Chloe Kim, Simone Manuel, and Sue Bird. Together has a killer platform for women's sports. So the problem that I had before I walked away with before reading Jen's article was the women. I didn't watch the original series that she's talking about, but just watching Surf Girls, it's so glossy and produced in like a reality television show that would be on ABC's in that fashion where they're front lit, sitting on the beach at sunset, all 4 girls in the sand with the mountains in the background, and tell us about what Hawaii means to you, basically. And the girls are sitting there looking at the ocean and like looking at each other like, yeah, you know, Hawaii means to me X, Y, and Z. And I'm going, this is so staged and not reflective of the way that these girls communicate with one another. This is production has done these women a disservice. And that was confirmed when they actually had one-on-one interviews with the girls, and the girls are super intelligent, super well-spoken, really, like, you could tell. It's like, wow, the most compelling part of the series is when they just let the girl talk on her own. Because the surfing isn't compelling. Like you said, they're hyping sunset. They spend a bunch of time hyping how treacherous and scary sunset is, then cut to the contest footage and it's knee high.
Yeah.
And they're struggling to get a 6. So like the surfing is not compelling. The story building that they're trying to do, totally not compelling. The production aesthetics, totally a disservice to everybody involved and the state of Hawaii. The core nut that is beautiful is letting these girls talk on their own. They're more compelling than any of the male surfers that I see on the WCT when they get interviewed. They're better spoken. They're more articulate. You know, it's just like, get out of the way. Let that girl just be her. That's what you need to do.
That's the problem too, is Eric Logan, the idiot that he was, is gone. The WSL remains Eric Loganified. There's no difference. There's no, you know, they're going to have to, at season end, fire everyone, clean house. And not, I don't think I think there's a ton of good people at the WSL, right? Like, I think at the top, at the, the executive level, it is garbage. You know, you have good people there. I'm sure you have good people who know exactly how to fix it. And those poor souls who are there toiling under the yoke of this idiocy have to be frustrated, right?
Totally. They're working within a broken corporation, you know?
Yeah, so get rid of everyone if they want it to work. If they don't, then keep on keeping on, because you're going to make another version of Surf Girls Hawaii. It won't be that, because everything you do gets canceled after 1 season because it's garbage. Best Thing, Make or Break, lasted 2 seasons, canceled, right? Even though it's because you had your dirty fingers in it. Like, get out.
Speaking of dirty fingers, I want to ask you your thoughts on this rumor that Eric Logan wasn't fired for the creepiness that we've discussed in the past shows, but was actually fired for back dealings outside of the purview of the WSL. Because you notice his name is executive producer on these side projects. Yeah, he
attaches himself.
So and I heard from a mutual friend that he told, directly from Eric Logan, that he told this mutual friend that he was fired for business dealing that didn't include the WSL.
Eric Logan said that?
That's what he said to a mutual friend, yes.
Of course he's not going to cop to.
Of course he's not going to. If the other rumors that you and I discussed are true, then of course he's not going to cop to that. But I have heard these rumors over time as well, which is, you know, a production approaches the WSL and wants to license footage. The fee for that footage is $27,000 a minute, which is way out of line. and so the people go, well, I'm not paying that. And the follow-up negotiation from Eric is, well, we can negotiate the rate, but I need to be executive producer on the project. So you look at all these projects that have come out tangential to the WSL, Surfer Girls Hawaii, Make or Break, you know, his name is on those executive producer credits. So the question is, was the WSL included in that deal? Did they have the opportunity? Did they turn down the opportunity? Did they give him a green light? Obviously, the WSL knows about that one because it was so big. But was there a point? Was that the reason for the firing ultimately? Was there a point where an opportunity happened that he could choose to line his pockets rather than buoying the WSL, and they saw that as a violation of their, you know, contract?
That kind of business does not get you sent on the first plane out of Brazil.
Great point.
Like
mid-event.
Yeah, mid-event, first plane out with the press release the next day with the one line. Yeah, like if he was doing double dealing or some kind of, you know, something like that, that would have been dealt with in a different way. That doesn't get you fired overnight. That is a come home from Brazil and let's discuss this and let's craft a statement about you being gone.
Yeah, and it also doesn't include the non-disclosures and the complete silence from everybody
Yeah.
involved and all that sort of
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah, I hear you. Well, okay then. Surf Girls, by the way, on Amazon Prime. If anybody wants to go watch that, Chaz.
I mean, you should watch it if you want to. If you've forgotten what it feels like to hate Eric Logan, you should go watch that again. Watch episode 1, and your blood will boil.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Worth it for that.
All right, well, let's go to commercial break real quick, and we will come back with Laird's favorite foods and barrel or nah. Hey, should we say something about Hey, should we say something about drinkag1.com/surf?
We sure should. We should talk all day about drinkag1.com/surf.
Can I read to you a text message that I got last week from
Yes,
a mutual
please.
friend? Shoot, give me a second. You're going to appreciate this. By the way, I just noticed that your text messages are silenced right now. Good job.
You know, I always silence them straight away.
You're a
Out of the
pro,
gate.
man. Okay, this message came from one Sid Abruzzi. Day 3 on AG1. Thanks, guys. Tell Mr. Smith.
I love it. Like, Sid Abruzzi is a person who was going to live a long time, has lived a long time. Now, thanks to drinkag1.com/surf, Sid Abruzzi is going to live forever. And that's all I need.
The package is about to unlock peak performance. Prepare for your best year ever, Sid. That's what I told him. He turns 72 on August 12th next week.
Epic. We need to have a birthday party for Sid on next week's show.
Well, you know what the ultimate birthday is that his film Water Brothers, the Sid Abruzzi story, comes out on August 17th, the following week.
Perfect.
I know.
Boom. There we go. And you want to know who's not an EP on Water Brothers?
One Eric Logan.
So it's guaranteed good.
The production team is amazing on that. I forget who it is, but
I mean,
it should be epic.
But also seriously, if it's good enough for the package, it's good enough for you. That's all you need to know. Anybody who hasn't yet, who listens to the podcast and has been on the fence about signing up to drinkag1.com/surf, that's all you, don't wait any longer. Sid Abruzzi's on the program.
Sid Abruzzi at 72 is still investing. And by the way, have you seen a more graceful aging? I mean, he's still skating, still surfing, still going hard, and he's 72 years old, and he realizes the value of AG1. So that's
The best.
So drinkag1.com/surf. All right, Chaz, welcome back to the show. In that article from Forbes on Laird Hamilton, one of the stupid questions that I undervalued because I appreciated the answer was, what is your favorite food? Best thing you ever ate?
Would you have ever guessed the best food that Laird Hamilton ever ate?
I never would have guessed
Bourgeoisie
it.
Laird. Bougie Laird.
Never would have guessed it.
Yeah. But
Foie-
it is foie gras.
Foie gras.
Here's the question for you.
It's a specific. He's not like it's my favorite thing. I eat it all the time. He said from a specific restaurant in Bordeaux.
In Bordeaux. It was like a farm in Bordeaux. I mean, it was literally, Laird Hamilton. If you click on it, you will think of Laird Hamilton differently. You won't think of him as a kind of burly mountain man anymore. You will think of Laird as a highly refined aristocrat. But here's a question for you. Pate or foie gras?
Foie gras.
Foie gras, I mean, I love pate. A good pate is really good.
Yeah.
A good foie gras is truly, to Laird's eternal credit, one of the best foods on the planet.
Yeah. It's also, when it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, the best version, like I'm sure there's plenty of people who ordered it at a restaurant and it was overly seared.
Yeah.
Or something like that, and they're just like, what is this? This is not good. But a good foie gras is the pinnacle of food.
I mean, just that goose, what that goose got to enjoy before giving you his liver.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, I was surprised to say by that response from Laird, but it also made me think, what an interesting question. Could you even identify what was the best food you ever ate? Would you? I mean, you'd have to think about it for a long time, right?
Definitely. It would take me a minute.
Well, I thought about it when I read that because it actually reminded me of one of the best things I ever ate was foie gras in Bordeaux.
Oh.
I was at a farmer's market in Bordeaux right on the river. It was just like random Saturday morning or something where everybody gets together, you know, and I didn't know it was going to be there. I just stumbled upon it. And there was a booth selling macaroons. Actually, I don't know which one is the little sandwiches, not the
macaron.
Macaron. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the macaroons, and there was one that was foie gras and chocolate inside, like a hazelnut chocolate. So it was a layer. On the bottom layer was the chocolate, and on the top layer, and they smash them together, the foie gras and the chocolate. And I just thought, that's just interesting, so I just want to try it because it's interesting. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I can imagine.
Yeah. The other best thing I ever ate, on the complete other end of the spectrum, Trader Joe's for a long period of time, 2 years, had this sriracha bacon jerky.
Oh, I remember you talking about this. Have they brought it back yet?
No, I haven't seen it in a few years, but it was literally, I put it in my mouth, and almost the very first time I was like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. It was instantaneous.
You should work on getting a Trader Joe's sriracha bacon jerky sponsorship, like our friend Luke Cederman has a Jack Link's sponsorship.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many things at Trader Joe's that they just cycle in and cycle out, and they're
Yeah.
like, that was so good. Why did it not stay?
Bring it back.
I know. All right, well, think about your best thing you ever ate and let us know next show.
Yeah, I think I've got it.
Do you?
Already even. Yeah, it was caviar. I can't remember what it was on. I'll get the specific. Caviar at Oscar, a Michelin-starred restaurant in Brooklyn, which just is, if anyone lives in New York or Brooklyn, go to Oscar, ASKA.
That's where you went a month or two ago, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mind-bending.
And the caviar specifically there.
I mean, it was a chef's menu, and a bunch of them featured caviar. I have the menu upstairs, so I can tell it next week.
Okay. Yeah, caviar is another thing that it's like,
So
in the
good.
right environment with the right thing, then you get it, you know? But
Entirely.
yeah, but people don't often have the best experience with it. All right, barrel or nah to close out the show. And also always brought to us by Buell, buellsurf.com. Thank you very much. This fits with our restaurant conversation.
Perfect.
Barrel or nah, ordering for your partner.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say it is a barrel. I'm going to say barrel, full stop. If your partner has bad taste, order for your partner. Like, just order. Just say, I'll be having this, and he or she will be having this.
When I grew up, there was rules that you learned that were polite, manners. If you go on a date, open the door for your date. One of those things that was like, I think this had to be from the 50s or something.
Ordering for your date.
Order for your date. And the way that I understood that was you decide what they want to eat, which felt so archaic and wrong to me. And then I realized at some point, I don't think that's what the rule is. I think the rule is you find out what your partner wants to eat. You have a conversation with your partner and they say, I want the chicken. And you go, okay. And when the waiter comes up, you take it upon yourself to have the dialogue with the waiter. My partner is going to have the chicken. I'm going to have the beef. That's, I think, the polite way to do it.
Politeness aside, I'm going to say, because even in a totally non-gendered way, unless if both partners have good taste, off you go on your ways, right? But also, there should be coordination amongst a meal out, correct? Like, if you say, I would like the steak, and then she says, I would also like the steak, and then you're both getting steak, well, you can't do that.
No, stupid.
That is totally dumb. So you need to coordinate. If both of you have good taste, then you will coordinate, right? If one has bad taste and one has good taste, then the person who has good taste, it is incumbent upon them to order the right meal for the table. So it doesn't matter which one goes where, right? You're going to inevitably share, but something over there and something over here. Now I've curated a beautiful meal for both of us because your taste sucks. My taste is pretty dang bad, to be honest, when it comes to food. I appreciate, and wife doesn't order for me, but we'll talk about it before, and I'll generally just say, hey, what are the two things you want? And then there we go. That's what we're getting.
That's honestly how I end up doing it too. Cause I'm always cool with anything, basically.
Sure.
Like, I will eat anything. And Lauren usually has two things that she's deciding between.
Yeah.
And I was really looking at this one thing over here, but I'm open to, being
Sure.
redirected.
The other
And
thing.
she's like, no, but I'm really in between these two things. And I go, you know what? Mine goes out the window. Let's get those two things.
That's what we're getting. Unless one of those items on the menu is a cheesesteak made with Cheese Whiz, then I'm happy to go any one direction or another.
Wow. Okay. That's your go-to?
I mean, a cheesesteak, there's a restaurant down here in the Convoy district down in San Diego for those who, I think it's called Common Theory. They have it's just like a beer place, but they have some weirdly phenomenal chef and a speakeasy that, like, which is a secret. I've gone there forever and didn't even know it existed. It was right there in plain sight. It's like a door into like a apothecary, and then which opens up to a whole secret restaurant thing. Anyway, like, chef must be Asian-ish, but the bulgogi cheesesteak there is mind-bending.
Man, last night we went to a restaurant that was Japanese-Italian fusion.
Oh, yeah.
Spicy miso carbonara.
I can just taste it now.
Yeah.
That's a great combo.
Great combo.
Yeah.
With udon noodles and then bone marrow cavatelli.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal. Just
Yeah.
like what a great combination of cuisines.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, me too. But that's a barrel. Barrel ordering for your partner, I think, is a barrel.
I got another thought from earlier in the show as you referenced Laird being bourgeois.
Yeah.
I feel like that term's been totally misused and reappropriated in the last few years because the definition of bourgeois, Ben Bourgeois, by the way, shout out.
Yeah.
The definition of bourgeois is middle class.
But it's middle class with fussy tastes, which Laird's tastes seem decidedly fussy.
That's fair. So you might have used it correctly. But what I'm saying in pop culture now,
Yeah, bourgeois means fancy.
yes, everybody
Yeah.
uses it to say, oh, the Kardashians are so bougie. It's
Yeah.
like, no, those are the richest people on the planet. Bourgeois means middle class.
Yeah,
But
they're not
nobody,
bourgeois.
at some point at the beginning of people using it 5 years ago, they did not realize the definition. And now it has a brand new definition.
The thing with it, I think it sounds like or clearly it is a fancy French word. And so people think fancy French word means fancy.
That's true. That's exactly what it is.
Completely that.
I know. I want to kick people in the shins when they use it incorrectly and then
Yeah.
correct them. And I've just lost. It's just like a flood of people using it now, and I've just lost the battle completely.
Bougie.
And now
Yeah.
it's going to have a new definition in the dictionary next year.
No cap. Like Chris.
I had to look that up. I didn't know what
Me
that
too.
meant either.
I had no idea. I thought it meant no cat. Like, yeah, I wrote about it. I thought Chris, like yesterday, for those who missed it, Joel Tudor got mad at people using leashes, professional longboarders using leashes at Huntington Beach. Classic Joel. Chris Cote responded, no cap, something, something, something. And I was like, no cap. Does that mean like, oh, the board shouldn't even have a leash plug? That's what I
thought he was saying, no, Captain. Like disagreeing with Joel, like, no, you're wrong, Captain.
I mean, you and I, again, like
Old
standard
guys.
middle-aged white male reads. And so I did Google it, though, because somebody said a grown man should not be using no cap. So I Googled it and found out what no cap meant.
So interestingly, my other thought with that, after I appreciated learning the new word, was it's off-brand for Cote to shame longboarders.
Yeah.
Like Cote is usually positive, and so I was surprised for him to agree with Joel and be like, yeah, shame on those surfers that I'm commentating on for using leashes.
It was a rare break with positive noise from Chris Cote.
I know. And I expected him to also be pro leash because it's going to save the board from hitting the kids playing in the shore break.
No cap.
No cap. Man. Okay. Barrel or nah. Coming from the Pros in the Wild segment. Speaking to celebrities. So you see the celebrity in the airport. Maybe it's a surfer in the lineup. You want to say something, but what could you possibly say that's going to actually enrich their life in some way? If you say something, it's really only to enrich your life. Barrel or nah, speaking to celebrities.
This one is a tiered barrel system. No barrel on major celebrities. The Tom Cruises, the Matthew McConaughey's, the Kelly Slaters. Kelly Slater's not a major celebrity. But
Laird Hamilton's.
major A-listers, no need. The minor tier, let's say below C or D, then it starts to jack up a little bit, and lo and behold, it's going to barrel. Because those people CD below, it gives them a little spike of adrenaline. When you go up and say, hey, I just wanted to say I really appreciated you in your small little indie thing, or blah, 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 right? Then they think, oh, thank you, right? And then also, if they react rudely, just stop bothering me, then you can think, oh, I get it. You think you're a big celebrity. You're a minor celebrity. By me coming up to you and saying I appreciate something, win-win for you, right? You're either going to out them as they think they're big time, or you're going to give them proper strokes, right? And then you know that you can, okay, that's somebody I can continue to appreciate, or that's someone I can disregard. Like the other day, I went to a nice Thai, I guess it's Vietnamese, let's call it Asian fusion restaurant, Bird's Eye Kitchen, which I had a funny Bird's Eye Kitchen and Rob Machado story, but I'm going to save that one. It's a really funny story, though. Anyway.
Crows in the wild.
Yeah. I should tell this story. The Bird's Eye Kitchen story real quick. So Bird's Eye Kitchen, phenomenal. It's in Lucadia. Great place. I'm going to have to get permission to tell the story from the proprietor. In any case, saw a ballerina in there, Scout Forsyth, who dances with the American Ballet Theater. Wife took daughter up, and she couldn't have been more gracious, right? And I was thinking that's what I'm talking about there, is strokes for Scout. My daughter was over the moon. She's a superstar to daughter, right? Like, everybody wins. And now I can appreciate Scout even more because of the way she reacted.
And Scout, doesn't get recognized daily, I'm sure. No. And when she does, it's from a true fan who appreciates her art.
Totally. Yeah. But if Scout would have brushed off and been like, oh, I'm trying to eat here, then I would have been like, okay, Scout, you lose status entirely because you are not a big enough star to act that way.
No.
Yet you're acting that way. So long.
The only thing that I want to hear, if I did encounter Kelly Slater, or I should say next time I encounter Kelly Slater in the wild, I would love if he just looked me dead in the eye and said,
I like turtles.
I'd be like, you are redeemed. You are completely redeemed. No matter what, from this point on, you get the joke. You appreciate the joke. Yep. You appreciate my art, which is
I like turtles.
And so now we're friends. Now I wish that we were friends. I want to spend time with you because you got a sense of humor. That guy, the I Like Turtles kid, has reappeared in promotion for the new movie.
I saw that, and this guy sent it so many times, and I appreciate it and everything, but it wasn't funny. Like, they should have, him on what's his name, Tosh.0 was a lot funnier.
Yeah. It was smart marketing though for the movie.
Great marketing. I just wish they would have done something a little more clever with him. Yeah. Like, even if he would have said, I said that forever ago and blah 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 blah, then whatever.
Yeah, I'm into lizards now or whatever else.
But, I mean, any other thing than just having to say I like turtles as an adult. I was like, oh man, that's awkward.
Final barrel or not is singing karaoke.
Full barrel. I'm gonna say if you're into it in your home, that's even a barrel. Like, if you just want to, I got a pro in the wild karaoke story.
Wow.
Everyone knows, I think, who knows that there's one who's the professional surfer who fancies themselves a singer and will just give her hell.
Man, I had no idea.
Mark Aki Akalupo. He thinks he sounds really good. I think he thinks he's ripping, and he's awful at singing, but he's so into it. Mic in hand, just going to town, singing, and he sucks, and it's funny, and it's good, right? Because it's all of it is, that's what good karaoke, that's what it is, right? It's somebody who's not shy standing there. Like, if you have to go to a karaoke bar, if that's on the docket for whatever reason, go and give her. Go and pick a song and own it, and nobody likes the pulled punch on karaoke.
Well, what I was thinking was, singing karaoke is super fun. Going to a karaoke bar, not fun. Going there in the experience, if you're not participating, is
Yeah.
kind of like the lamest. That's the last place I want to be. I'd rather be having a conversation. We can't talk now because we have to listen to these people sing.
Somebody's singing, Don't Stop Believing.
Getting up there and participating and singing is super fun.
You get a bit of the adrenaline, right? And I've never done it. Like I've only down here they have the like private karaoke rooms. That's what they like. The karaoke bar is not common in amongst the Asian cultures. I don't think it's like you go in and you get a room with your friends, and that's fun too. But the karaoke bar or open mic night or whatever, like yeah, being there sucks. But if you're gonna participate, have at it, man.
Totally, I fully agree. Like we've talked about with dancing at a wedding or whatever, it's like get up and do the thing.
Just do it.
Yeah, being the mope on the side who's not participating in that environment is you're not
cool.
Not only is it not cool, bringing down the vibe. You're not having fun.
And pulling the punch too, like okay, fine, I gotta dance. Going and like snapping your fingers a little bit, that's lame. Going up and singing, oh, I gotta sing like the chorus and then giggle at yourself for
Yeah,
just lame. Give her hell.
agreed.
Out.
Agreed. You should start a karaoke tonight at the factory.
I will.
Grab the mic from Travis when he's introducing a film and bust out whatever.
Don't stop believing.
The worst. It's the most common karaoke song and the worst. Give a Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah.
Like
nothing compares.
That'd be amazing.
Nothing compares. Oh, just sing it like right. Make eye contact with Travis Wright and just sing it. Holding eye contact.
That's what the
singing with eye contact is really tough.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to our lovely listeners for keeping the Pros in the Wild segment alive and well. I mean, we've stumbled on a dozen segments over the years that become its own thing, and this is maybe the best of them, best of all.
Truly, I think it is almost deserving a coffee table book. We should produce a coffee table book of Pros in the Wild.
And in the segment, or with each story, we'll reach out to the pro that's profiled if they're still around and see if they remember. Give us your commentary on when this happened. Do you remember this happening? What are your thoughts? How do you remember it?
Can't wait.
Yeah, I like it. This is an idea right here.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks to our sponsors as well. Buell Surf, drinkag1.com/surf, and VayerWatches.com. Promo code Splendor15. Chaz, anything else?
That's it.
Sweet, man. Have a wonderful time tonight and have a great week. And we will see you next week. Until then.
Bon voyage.
All right.